Most seniors believe their morning routine is harmless, even healthy. But what if I told you that one of the most common breakfast choices is quietly slowing your brain every single day? Not because of age, not because of memory decline, but because of something sitting right on your plate. And the shocking part? Doctors rarely talk about it, which is why so many people over 60 fall into the same trap without ever realizing it. For years, people have been told that feeling tired, foggy, or slower before noon is just part of getting older. But that's one of the biggest lies the health world ever normalized. I've seen seniors completely transform their clarity, mood, and energy by changing just one thing in their morning ritual. No pills, no expensive treatments, no complicated routines. Just a simple shift that rewires how your brain wakes up. And here's what almost no one knows. The symptoms caused by the wrong breakfast can look exactly like medical problems: shaky focus, poor recall, sudden fatigue, brain fog. These sensations often lead to unnecessary tests, false positives, and even overdiagnosis that scares people into thinking something is seriously wrong. But the root cause isn't in your brain, it's in your breakfast. Imagine waking up with a sharper mind, stronger focus, and steady energy before you even finish your coffee. Imagine understanding why your brain feels slow on some mornings and completely clear on others. And imagine discovering that the fix is not only simple, but something you can start tomorrow. This isn't just information, it's a turning point for anyone over 60 who wants their mind to feel alive again. So stay with me, because what you're about to learn can save you years of confusion, frustration, and unnecessary worry. And the best part, the solution begins with something you're already doing every day. But first, let me give you the missing piece no one ever told you about. The hidden morning habit that silently slows senior brain function. Most seniors don't realize how much a single morning habit shapes their entire day. A quiet routine, repeated for years, can gradually slow brain function without making noise, almost like dust settling on a bookshelf. A mentor once told me, "What you do before 9 a.m. decides how sharp you'll be at noon." And the truth is, this habit often goes unnoticed because it feels so harmless. Many older adults start their day with the same ritual they learned decades ago, believing it supports preventive care. But what few people know is that some of these choices silently reduce circulation to key brain regions, making thinking slower and reactions softer. It's subtle, so subtle that seniors blame aging instead of the routine itself. It's the same cycle that leads many people to unnecessary tests later, chasing answers for a problem that began on their breakfast table. I've seen countless seniors describe the same pattern, waking up fine but within an hour feeling mentally dull, as if the world around them suddenly thickened. They think it's normal, but the body is just responding to a hidden trigger from that very first habit. When this pattern repeats daily, doctors sometimes misinterpret it as cognitive decline, increasing the risk of overdiagnosis and even recommending blood work or scans that bring unnecessary radiation risk. One gentleman once told me he used to feel foggy by 8:30 a.m., so he started scheduling medical checkups to investigate memory issues. None of them revealed real medical harm, but the false positives from routine testing only made him more anxious. All along, the root cause sat quietly on his breakfast plate, waiting to be noticed. That's why understanding this morning habit becomes a turning point for anyone over 60. And here's where things get interesting. Once people learn the real mechanism behind this habit, they finally understand why the brain slows down before noon and what simple steps can reverse it. This single shift often becomes the first domino in transforming senior health. But what actually causes this slowdown after breakfast? That's where the next topic begins. How sugar-loaded breakfasts disrupt brain circulation after 60. Many seniors start their morning with something sweet because it feels comforting and familiar. But what most people never realize is how sugar-loaded breakfasts quietly interfere with brain circulation, especially after 60, when the body becomes far more sensitive to glucose spikes. The brain depends on steady blood flow, and sugar sends that rhythm into chaos within minutes. Right after eating something sugary, circulation shifts dramatically. Blood rushes to the gut to manage the overload, leaving the brain slightly starved for oxygen. Seniors feel it as slower thinking, weaker focus, or sudden tiredness. It's not aging, it's physiology. And the confusing part is that this pattern often mimics symptoms that push people into unnecessary tests, increasing their risk of overdiagnosis. I once spoke with a woman who loved her morning sweetbread. She told me that every day around 10 a.m., she felt as if someone had dimmed the lights inside her mind. Doctors ran multiple checkups, including heart tests with radiation risk, only to tell her everything looked normal. But nothing improved because the Rayol trigger was on her breakfast plate, not inside her brain. When seniors replace sugar-heavy meals with something steadier, like oats, eggs, Greek yogurt, berries, or even a simple handful of nuts, the difference can be shocking. One man told me he felt 20 years younger within a week. It wasn't magic, it was stable glucose supporting stable circulation, the foundation of true senior health. Sometimes the simplest swap becomes the strongest, safer alternative. But here's where it gets even more surprising. Sugar alone isn't the only culprit. There's a specific family of foods that look innocent but trigger an even deeper kind of morning brain disruption. And almost every senior eats them without realizing the long-term cost. The real reason processed carbs trigger memory fog in seniors. Most seniors have no idea that the soft, warm, comforting processed carbs they've eaten for decades behave very differently inside an aging body. Bread, crackers, white toast, pancakes, foods that feel light, actually hit the bloodstream like sugar grenades. And the brain is the first to react. It's why so many seniors experience memory fog, but assume it's just aging, not breakfast. Processed carbs break down almost instantly, sending glucose soaring and crashing just as fast. This roller coaster quietly interrupts brain circulation, making it harder for neurons to fire at full strength. Many older adults describe the same sensation. I can't think straight, I feel slow, or my memory slips in and out. These symptoms often mimic cognitive decline, leading doctors to run unnecessary tests or scans that open doors to overdiagnosis and false positives. I once met a 74-year-old gentleman who believed he was developing early dementia because he felt mentally stuck every morning. His doctor ordered preventive care exams, including screenings with radiation risk. All came back normal. Only later, when he adjusted his breakfast to include proteins, omega-3 sources, and steady energy foods, did he realize the slowdown wasn't age, it was breakfast. He said it felt like someone turned the lights back on. Processed carbs also create another hidden issue. They spark cravings. Seniors feel hungry sooner, reach for more quick snacks, and their energy swings up and down all morning. This cycle doesn't just slow the brain, it can create the illusion of deeper medical harm. That illusion pushes many into preventive care that isn't actually preventive, but reactive, chasing a problem that begins in the kitchen, not in the brain. And here's the twist most people never expect. The fog isn't just from the carbs themselves, it's from what happens in the bloodstream afterward. A specific circulation shift linked to breakfast choices can make even the strongest seniors feel like their energy collapses before noon. The silent link between breakfast choices and senior fatigue. Many seniors wake up with good intentions, ready to start the day strong, yet feel drained only a few hours later. What they rarely suspect is that breakfast, something they've trusted their whole lives, quietly shapes that morning crash. There's a direct link between what they eat at sunrise and the sudden wave of fatigue that shows up mid-morning, almost like someone pulled the plug on their energy. When a breakfast is heavy in sugars or processed carbs, the body sends most of its circulation to the digestive system to manage the spike. That leaves the brain slightly underfueled, creating a dip that feels like tiredness rather than hunger. Many seniors interpret this as aging or even a medical problem, which often leads them into unnecessary tests that bring stress, cost, and sometimes real medical harm from false positives. I once spoke with a retired teacher who felt exhausted every day by 10 a.m. Her doctor suggested multiple preventive care exams, some involving radiation risk she didn't even need. The results always came back normal, but she still felt fatigued. Only when she swapped her morning pastries for eggs and berries did the fatigue disappear within days. She laughed and said, "All those tests, and it was just my breakfast bossing me around." The emotional side of this fatigue is deeper than most people admit. Feeling drained makes seniors feel old, slower, and out of control of their own bodies. But what most don't realize is that this cycle is reversible. Small breakfast adjustments, like adding fiber, proteins, and healthy fats, steady circulation, allowing the brain to stay alert and energized. These are safer alternatives that avoid the cascade of unnecessary tests. And here's where things get even more intriguing. Fatigue is just the surface symptom. Beneath it lies another mechanism, one that makes seniors feel slower before noon, even on days when they slept well and feel optimistic. This hidden pattern connects morning meals directly to cognitive speed. Why many seniors feel slower before noon without realizing the cause. Many seniors notice a strange pattern. They wake up clear, but by late morning, everything feels slower. Thoughts take longer, decisions feel heavier, and even simple tasks demand more effort.
The
Most
breakfast
people assume
ingredients
this
that
is
increase
just what
inflammation in the
happens
aging
after
brain.
60.
Most
But the
seniors
hidden
don't
truth
imagine
is
that certain
their
breakfast
morning
staples
slowdown
quietly spark
often
inflammation
comes
inside
from
the
the
brain.
first meal of the
These
day,
foods are often
not their
marketed
age.
as healthy,
Breakfast
light, or
choices can
energy
quietly
boosting,
shift how
yet in an
glucose
aging
and
body,
circulation
they behave very differently.
especially
They
in
can disrupt
older bodies.
circulation, irritate
When the
neural
bloodstream
pathways, and
swings
multiply
too
the subtle
fast,
morning fog
up and
that so
down,
many people assume
neurons
is
lose
just part
their
of senior
rhythm.
health.
Seniors
Highly
feel
processed
it as
cereals,
mental
flavored
drag,
yogurts,
fog,
packaged
or
granolas,
sense that
and
their
even some
brain
low-fat
is warming
options
up
create
too
inflammatory
slowly.
surges that the
These
body
symptoms
struggles to
mimic
manage after
cognitive
60.
decline,
This inflammation
and often
doesn't
send people
scream
searching
it
for medical
whispers.
answers,
It shows up as
exposing them
slower
to
recall, mild
overdiagnosis
confusion,
and
or that
unnecessary
strange feeling
tests
of
that
I know
never
this word,
address the real
but I can't
cause.
reach it.
I once
These
met a
symptoms often mirror
79-year-old
early
gentleman
cognitive
who
decline,
believed he was
which can lead to
developing
unnecessary
early dementia
tests and dangerous
because he felt mentally
overdiagnosis.
stuck
I
every
once
morning.
mentored a woman
His
who ate a
doctor
healthy
ordered
cereal
preventive
every
care
morning because the
exams,
box
including
promised heart-friendly
screenings with
benefits.
radiation risk.
Yet every day she
All
felt
came
mentally
back
blurry
normal.
by mid-morning.
Only later,
Her
when he
doctor ordered
adjusted his
exams,
breakfast to
including ones
include
with radiation
proteins,
risk, to
omega,
rule out
free
neurological
sources,
issues.
and steady energy
All results
foods,
looked normal.
did he realize
When
the
she swapped that
slowdown
cereal
wasn't
for
age,
anti-inflammatory
it was
foods,
breakfast.
berries,
He
walnuts,
said
chia
it felt
seeds,
like
her clarity
someone
returned
turned the
within
lights
weeks.
back on.
She joked that my brain
What most
forgave me.
seniors don't realize
Inflammation
is that
also
certain
affects the emotional
foods
side of the
force their
brain,
body to work
making
harder
seniors feel
than it
more
should
tired,
early in the day.
irritable, or mentally
This
heavy.
creates
This emotional
circulation
slowdown
shifts that
often gets
reduce
mistaken for
mental
depression
clarity,
or memory
making the
decline,
brain feel
pushing people
heavy
into
and
preventive care
slow.
pathways that
The
don't
scary
address
part,
the real root.
these
The hidden
sensations
truth
can be
is that
misread
choosing
by
safer
physicians,
alternatives at
leading to false
breakfast can protect the
positives
brain
and
far
extra
more
medical harm.
effectively than most
Tests,
medical interventions
medications,
aimed at
and
these symptoms.
recommendations that don't
And here's where the
fix
next
root
revelation
issue.
begins.
Safer
Inflammation
alternatives
doesn't to just
often
make the
start in
brain
kitchen,
slower, it
not
also
the
sets
clinic.
the stage for
And
something
here's
even
the
more
part that
concerning.
opens the next
Certain
door.
breakfast
The
mistakes
foods
create
that
symptoms
slow
so
the brain
confusing
before
that
noon
many
aren't
seniors end up
always the
inside
obvious
clinics
culprits.
undergoing tests they
Some
never needed.
ingredients
The
disguised
senior
as
breakfast
healthy
mistake that
can
leads to
quietly increase
overdiagnosis.
inflammation
There's
inside
one
the
breakfast
aging
mistake
brain,
that quietly
making
sends
mornings
thousands
even
of seniors
harder.
into clinics every
The
year,
breakfast
searching for
ingredients that
answers they
increase
don't actually
inflammation
need.
in the aging
It happens
brain.
when a morning meal triggers
Most
symptoms that
seniors
look
don't
medical
imagine that
but
certain
aren't.
breakfast
A simple
staples
choice at the table
quietly
can mimic
spark
neurological
inflammation
issues,
inside the
circulation
brain.
problems,
These
or
foods
early
are
memory
often
decline,
marketed as
pushing people
healthy,
toward unnecessary
light, or
tests
energy
and overwhelming
boosting, yet
preventive
in an
care
aging
routines.
body, they
When
behave
seniors eat
very
foods that
differently.
destabilize
They
glucose,
can
disrupt circulation, or spike
irritate
inflammation,
neural
the body
pathways,
reacts
and
fast.
multiply the
They may
subtle
feel
morning
shaky,
fog that
foggy,
so many
dizzy, or
people
unusually
assume is
tired.
just part of
And
senior
because these
health.
sensations show up
Highly
repeatedly,
processed
many
cereals,
assume something
flavored
serious is
yogurts,
happening.
packaged granolas,
Doctors, trying
and
to
even
help,
some
often order
low-fat
exams just in
options
case.
create
But this is
inflammatory
exactly where
surges
false
that the body
positives and
struggles to
overdiagnosis
manage
begin,
after 60.
especially in those over
This
60.
inflammation
I remember a
doesn't
68-year-old
scream,
man who
it
believed he had a
whispers.
heart rhythm issue
It
because
shows
he
up
felt
as
off
slower
every
recall,
morning.
mild
His
confusion,
physician
or
ordered
that
scans that
strange
carried
feeling of,
radiation
"I
risk,
know this
plus
word,
blood work
but I
and
can't
stress
reach
tests.
it."
Everything
These
came back
symptoms
normal,
often
yet the
mirror
fears
early
remained.
cognitive decline,
Only later
which
did he
can lead to
realize his symptoms
unnecessary
disappeared
tests
when he
and
replaced
dangerous
sugary toast with a
overdiagnosis.
protein-based breakfast.
I once mentored
My
a woman
breakfast
who
lied
ate
to me,
a
he said,
healthy
half
cereal
joking,
every
half
morning
relieved.
because the box
This cycle
promised
doesn't just
heart-friendly
waste time and
benefits.
money, it
Yet
creates
every
emotional
day,
harm.
she felt mentally
Seniors begin to
worried
fear their
by
own
mid-morning.
bodies, thinking
Her
every
doctor
unusual
ordered
feeling is a
exams,
sign of
including
medical
ones with
decline.
radiation risk,
These sensations
to
can
rule
feel like
out
medical harm,
neurological
even when no
issues.
disease exists.
All results look
The
normal.
truth is that many of
When she
these
swapped
reactions
that
are simply
cereal
the
for
body rebelling against the
anti-inflammatory
breakfast
foods,
that
berries,
ISNT aligned
walnuts,
with senior
chia
health.
seeds, her
Safer
clarity
alternatives often
returned
solve
within
what
weeks.
dozens of tests
She
can't.
joked that
And here's
my
where
brain
everything becomes
forgave
even
me.
more empowering. When seniors
Inflammation
change their
also
breakfast
affects the
habits,
emotional
the
side
shift
of the
is
brain,
sometimes so
making
dramatic that it
seniors
feels like
feel
a
more
transformation,
tired,
sharper memory,
irritable,
stable
or
energy,
mentally
better
heavy.
mood.
This
And real
emotional
stories of this
slowdown
change
often
reveal
gets
the full
mistaken for
picture.
depression or memory decline, pushing people into preventive care pathways that don't address the real root. The hidden truth is that choosing safer alternatives at breakfast can protect the brain far more effectively than most medical interventions aimed at these symptoms. And here's where the next revelation begins. Inflammation doesn't just make the brain slower, it also sets the stage for something even more concerning. Certain breakfast mistakes create symptoms so confusing that many seniors end up inside clinics, undergoing tests they never needed. The senior breakfast mistake that leads to overdiagnosis. There is one breakfast mistake that quietly sends thousands of seniors into clinics every year, searching for answers they don't actually actually need. It happens when a morning meal triggers symptoms that look medical, but aren't. A simple choice at the table can mimic neurological issues, circulation problems, or early memory decline, pushing people toward unnecessary tests and overwhelming preventive care routines. When seniors eat foods that destabilize glucose, disrupt circulation, or spike inflammation, the body reacts fast. They may feel shaky, foggy, dizzy, or unusually tired. And because these sensations show up repeatedly, many assume something serious is happening. Doctors, trying to help, often order exams just in case. But this is exactly where false positives and overdiagnosis begin, especially in those over 60. I remember a 68-year-old man who believed he had a heart rhythm issue because he felt off every morning. His physician ordered scans that carried radiation risk, plus blood work and stress tests. Everything came back normal, yet the fears remained. Only later did he realize his symptoms disappeared when he replaced sugary toast with a protein-based breakfast. "My breakfast lied to me," he said, half joking, half relieved. This cycle doesn't just waste time and money, it creates emotional harm. Seniors begin to fear their own bodies, thinking every unusual feeling is a sign of medical decline. These sensations can feel like medical harm, even when no disease exists. The truth is that many of these reactions are simply the body rebelling against a breakfast that isn't aligned with senior health. Safer alternatives often solve what dozens of tests can't. And here's where everything becomes even more empowering. When seniors change their breakfast habits, the shift is sometimes so dramatic that it feels like a transformation. Sharper memory, stable energy, better mood. And real stories of this change reveal the full picture. Real stories of seniors who change breakfast and regain clarity. Final case that ties everything together. Among all the stories I've heard, one stands out because it brings every lesson to life. It came from a 76-year-old man who had spent years believing his brain was failing him. He felt slow every morning, confused before noon, and terrified that something serious was happening. His doctor ordered rounds of preventive care tests, some with radiation risk, and the results were always contradictory. It was a perfect example of how easily false positives can lead to overdiagnosis. He told me he felt trapped between fear and frustration. Every morning, the same pattern repeated. Breakfast, then fog, then fatigue, then worry. He thought he was losing himself. What no one realized was that his morning healthy routine, orange juice, sweet yogurt, and toast, was quietly triggering circulation dips that affected his thinking. The symptoms looked medical, but the cause was nutritional. A simple swap could have saved him months of stress. One day, after hearing another senior talk about breakfast changes, he decided to try a safer alternative. He replaced his usual morning foods with a simple plate: eggs, spinach, and half an avocado. On the second day, he felt something he hadn't felt in years: mental sharpness before lunch. It shocked him. "I thought it was medication I needed," he said. "Turns out it was education." That shift alone reduced almost all the sensations that once sent him into unnecessary tests. Within 2 weeks, he described waking up with clarity that reminded him of his 50s. His energy held steady, his mood felt lighter, and he no longer mistook breakfast-triggered symptoms for medical harm. His story shows how quickly the brain responds when we stop overwhelming it first thing in the morning. It's not magic, it's physiology aligned with senior health. And his confidence returned the moment his mind felt alive again. And now comes the part most seniors never expect. Once he fixed his mornings, everything else became easier: sleep, focus, memory, even motivation to move more. His transformation opened a question that almost every viewer eventually asks. If such a small change creates such big results, what else could they improve with the right guidance? This is exactly the point where most seniors get stuck. They realize their mornings are slowing their brain. They feel the change happening inside them, but they don't know what to do next. And that's why I created something incredibly simple, practical, and accessible, so no one has to guess their way through this transformation. Inside my longevity playbooks and habit guides, I break down the exact routines, foods, and daily habits that help your brain wake up sharper, your circulation flow better, and your energy stay steady throughout the day. It's the same structure I've used with countless seniors who wanted clarity, vitality, and direction, all without complicated steps or overwhelming information. These guides were designed for one purpose: to make longevity feel easy. Clear checklists, simple meal ideas, weekly planners, anti-aging recipes, and brain support tools, everything organized so you know exactly what to do every morning. And honestly, the amount of value in these materials is far beyond what most people expect, especially considering how extremely cheap they are for everything you receive. This is the kind of resource I wish every senior had access to, something they can open every day and say, "Okay, this is my next step." If you want to go deeper with me and continue this transformation in a structured, supportive way, the link is right there in the description. No pressure, just an invitation to care for your future self. If you've watched this far, you already know something powerful. Your brain isn't slowing down because of age. It's slowing down because of habits that were never designed for a body over 60. And the moment you change your mornings, everything else begins to change with it. Clarity, focus, energy, mood, it all starts with the first choice you make at sunrise. So let me ask you, what's one breakfast change you're willing to try tomorrow morning? Will you swap the sugary foods? Try a protein-first meal? Add something anti-inflammatory? Tell me in the comments. Your commitment might inspire someone else who needs this message today. And remember this, your brain is not too old, you are not too late, and the best years of your clarity can still be ahead of you. Small steps, small choices, small shifts repeated daily. That's how seniors rebuild a sharper, stronger.
Go check the link in my bio. There is something extra waiting just for you, my friend.